keep your ear to the ground, because I have with me now in the studio GB News presenter and former leader of the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage. Crumbs, you've had quite the week, haven't you?
It's been a very busy week. Yes, I've stumbled upon something.
You have too.
Yeah, I didn't pick this fight.
No, I know.
This fight picked me. It was when I was annoyed that the accounts were being closed. I'd been with the banking group for 43 years, done nothing wrong whatsoever. But it wasn't until I got my subject access request back. Now, I'd never heard of a subject access request until 2 months ago. But when I was told I could go to the bank to find out what personal data they had on me, and when it became clear I was being debanked purely for political views, that was when I decided, you know what? I'm not going to take this.
No.
If they want to fight, they can have one. So I've got into this fight, and what I've learned is we see Grant Shapps today in the Sun on Sunday.
Does that surprise you?
No, not at all, saying that he
so many people
and his children, his family have been very badly affected by his political status. You see Aaron Banks in the Mail on Sunday, a business with 500,000 customers, just literally told we're closing the accounts.
You knew about that at the time, but he didn't come forward. Why?
Well, no one did. You see, this is the point. Nobody with profile who's been debanked has come forward. 2 reasons. One, a sense of shame, humiliation and embarrassment. But secondly, it would damage their prospects of getting other bank accounts. But what I've learned is this. It isn't just high-profile people with strong opinions that have been closed down by banks that have become completely politicised in the most extraordinary way. What I've learned in the 3 weeks since I came out, as it were, I've just been inundated by small businesses, by folk all around the country, people in absolute fear, terror, lives being ruined, thousands of businesses being closed. These are people who've done nothing wrong whatsoever.
What reason have they been given?
You've got 2 problems here. The first is the cultural problem. We've touched on that. It's the politicisation of so much of corporate Britain, the banks perhaps being the worst example. The second is this. We have a whole raft of anti-money laundering directives. Much of it came through the European Union, but whatever, as soon as it gets to the FCA, the regulator, or compliance departments, they compound things and make things worse. Yes, there's an international drugs trade that launders tens of billions of dollars every week. We know that.
Yeah.
However, the legislation in place is like a sledgehammer to miss the nut. Because we're not stopping the crooks, and we're closing down small businesses. And we've seen these banks that we bailed out, our taxes went up to bail out the banks in 2008 and 2009, and in return, they've closed 5,000 branches around the country, and they're saying to businesses, you know, someone running a fish stall, sorry, we don't want cash. Well, I haven't got a credit card machine.
No.
We don't want your business. They are trying to drive cash out of the economy. Any payment that comes into your account that's unusual can lead to suspension. Say you've sold a motorbike to a French motorbike collector, and a payment comes in from a French account. Alarm bells go off, and we're frankly treating the local window cleaner as if he could be a front for a Colombian drug gang.
Absolutely preposterous.
And let me tell you why it's not working, why it is a sledgehammer to miss the nut. For every £1 of laundered money recovered in the system, it costs £100 to process it. So I want to see a cultural change, but government and Parliament needs to go through the legislation. This simply isn't working. It's not just ruining lives in Britain, it's damaging business in Britain.
Are we at the point where we actually need an inquiry into this, a formal inquiry?
Well, not a parliamentary one, because that would kick it into the long grass.
How about getting a Royal Commission on it?
I would be happy to have a Royal Commission into it, provided it happened quickly. The information we've got out today is that now 1,000 bank accounts a day are being closed. A day. Every single day, 1,000 people, whether it's their personal or business accounts, are being closed down. And my concern is that Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor this week, showed no comprehension of the issue whatsoever. Now, there are many things this Conservative government have done over 13 years that I've profoundly disagreed with. I have to say, as soon as I came out on this subject, I thought the response from Andrew Griffith, the City Minister, and indeed from the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has been very, very good. We need to move incredibly quickly.
I mean, Rachel Reeves is talking about the fact that the press has apparently bullied Dame Alison...
Rose.
Sorry, I'm confusing her with Howard Davis, who I'll ask you in a minute. You know, the press has been bullying her. Well, no, she unfortunately leaked your personal information to somebody at the BBC.
This is identity politics. This is, because she's a woman, It's not right she's lost her job. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less what sex she is, what gender she is. I couldn't care less what colour she is. I'm not interested. I believe in a meritocracy where you rise on ability and you're judged on what you do.
Aren't you tempted to sue NatWest and Coutts because they've given away your personal information?
Well, they've given away my personal information.
It's a breach of privacy.
They breached GDPR regulations. Also, remember...
Well, you could take them to the cleaners.
To prove my innocence, I had to publish a lot of material about me that was wrong and defamatory, you know, that I was somehow linked to Russia. Oh, I was an anti-Semite because I criticised Grant Shapps, who I'm pleased to say puts that to bed.
But on Sunday,
but also, and there were some big sins
but will
here.
You sue these banks?
I like Ricky Gervais. It's quite serious, some of this.
It's very serious. And no
I don't know what I'm going to do. At some point...
Are you considering legal action against NatWest and Coutts?
Every option is on the table.
Yeah.
Every option is on the table. But the important thing is this. There are tens of thousands of people out there, maybe more, who have been wronged by the banks, whose lives have been ruined. They have had no one to speak for them. They've been suffering in silence, and that's why I've launched this website today,
tell us about that.
accountclosed.org. If you've been closed down, if you've been suspended, come and tell me who you are. Help me to help you. I want to build together a very powerful lobby group that MPs, ministers and government simply can't ignore, so we can get the changes that we need.
We've talked about some individuals. We've talked about Dame Alison Rose. We've also talked, I think, obviously he's resigned now, the head of Coutts, Peter Flavel. What about Sir Howard Davies? He's the NatWest chairman. He's once described Brexit as a tragedy, I think.
Yes.
And he doesn't he doesn't want to go early. He's retiring next year. Shouldn't he go now?
Extraordinary chap. I mean, fails at everything he does, but every failure leads to promotion to an even bigger and higher paid role. Look, joking aside, Sir Howard Davies chairs the NatWest board. That board, last Tuesday, endorsed Alison Rose staying in position despite the fact she breached the most fundamental rule of banking, that being client confidentiality. Also, Davis was the head of the regulator, the FSA as it was known at the time. Just looking at the rule book, she breached the most important principles. So mistake number one, he wanted to keep her in place. He was then forced into an embarrassing U-turn a few hours later. Mistake number two, he called her a great leader, which means she will get a £2.43 million payoff.
Should she get that
I just
payoff?
think it's almost like a club, isn't it? They're all together in the same club. I think that was wrong.
But would you dock that payment to her?
Oh, I think 2.43 million would be completely excessive. And bear in mind, you know, 38.6% of this is effectively coming from us.
Yeah, of course.
Because the taxpayer are shareholders. But worst of all, he's now said there'll be an inquiry into the leak and the closure of Farage's accounts.
Yes, this is the person who described Brexit as a tragedy, the person who's leading this investigation.
Oh, no, it's far worse than that.
Chris Hale of Travers Smith, although Howard Davies himself is a pro-Remain.
Chris Hale of Travers Smith is the emeritus chair and you know, their top man when it comes to research. He said that Brexit was xenophobic, racist and nostalgic. Almost exactly the same words written about me in the Coutts report. How on earth can this person conduct anything like an independent inquiry? And I think for all of those reasons, Howard Davies has proved himself to be unfit for office. The government should step in before the markets open tomorrow and appoint somebody new.
Now, tell me, when do you lose this banking? Because I think there's kind of a countdown time. And what actually happens? Do they hand you all of your assets in a cheque?
Well,
right, off you go.
I did write to Peter Flavel, the boss of the CEO of Coutts, back in May, and said if I can't find alternative solutions, I'll come with a Securicor van and collect the balance of my account in cash. And he chose to ignore me.
Right.
We've got a timeline of a couple of weeks. I need to have a conversation I haven't had time last week. I have a conversation with the bank, a conversation with my lawyers, work out what I'm going to do next. To be honest, I've been so absorbed
Has anyone else
by this.
banking in the background?
Not from a bank, no.
And if Coutts were to say, we've made a terrible mistake, we'll let you stay on as a customer, what would you say? I mean, I know you've got the personal banking by NatWest.
Yeah, but that doesn't solve my problems. No. Look, you know, I'll have a conversation with Coutts. You know, it's all well and good them saying you can stay with us, but you know, I do not want what has happened to me to happen to anybody else. And it's clear from today's newspapers, it has been happening to an awful lot of people. I want this to be a turning point in this whole appalling behaviour from banks, whether it's high-profile figures or people running a fish stall. What has happened within this industry is wrong. It's become, frankly, self-serving. in its own interests. It's damaging Britain, and I want real change. So let's see.
Remind me of the website again, Nigel.
Accountclosed.org, and I want people...
anyone can go on there if they've had a problem with their banking in terms of them being told your account's being closed down. Go on there, and you and your people can help.
And let's find out the scale of the problem.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on the show this morning, Nigel, and good luck with this campaign.